Welcome to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
When the meeting begins momentarily, the chair will take a roll call, explain any specific rules for this particular board, and then move to public comment. The name of the board member will appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For instance, this is board member Y, and this is board member E. Public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. You can indicate that you are ready to testify by clicking on the Raise Hand button being circled by the mouse on your screen now. At the appropriate time, the board will recognize you to speak and ask you to unmute your mic as shown here. Again, public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. Public attendees will not be able to unmute their microphone until recognized by the board. Public attendees who are recognized to testify will be asked to identify themselves by name and their affiliated organization if applicable. Please mute your microphone when you are finished speaking as a courtesy to others and members of the board. Public attendees will not be able to unmute themselves after the testimony is completed unless recognized again after raising their hand. At some point during the meeting, the board may choose to move into executive session. When the board moves into executive session, the board members' microphones and video feeds will be turned off, and a similar screen as you see now will be displayed. When the board returns from executive session, their microphones will be turned on as well as their video cameras.
Welcome again to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
At this time, the chair will call the meeting to order and take a roll call, as well as explain any additional rules that may be specific to this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Board of Nursing meeting for March 2024. Before we get started, some information about attending virtual board meetings. As a note, if you wish to submit testimony on any agenda item on a Board of Nursing agenda, you should submit your testimony to nursing@dcca.hawaii.gov or by mail. The address is in the agenda. We request submission of testimony at least 24 hours prior to the meeting to ensure that it can be distributed to board members. If you are attending this meeting virtually by internet, to view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You will be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry in an email format. Your microphone will be automatically muted. When the chair asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chair will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking. If you are attending by phone to get audio-only access, you wish to provide testimony. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate that you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your telephone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chair, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your telephone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you're finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to remute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If the connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specified date and time, and the information for the rescheduled meeting will be posted to the board's website. Instructions to attend State of Hawaii virtual board meetings is available online. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to take a roll call of board members. We do have one excused member today. Terrence Aratani is excused. For those board members who are attending virtually, please indicate that you are present and whether you're alone when you indicate that you are present. Chair Carrie Oliveira is present. Karen Boyer.
Present.
Sherry Shields Hansen.
Sherry, present, and I am alone online.
Bradley Kuo.
Present.
Diana Jill Riggs.
Present and alone.
And we do have a quorum, so we can continue the board as the meeting is officially called to order. Okay, we're going to start with our first agenda item. In the wrong document. Here we go. Okay. First item on the agenda is the chair's report. So a couple of things. One, congratulations to our LPN programs all throughout the state. The agenda indicates that Kapiolani Community College Practical Nursing Program ranks 1 out of 1,117 LPN programs in the country, but also Kauai Community College and UH Maui College also have similar rankings because they both had 100% pass rates. So congratulations to our LPN program. Cannot be overstated the value of LPN programs to sustaining the LPN workforce in the state of Hawaii. So you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you for your contribution to keeping people well in the state of Hawaii. So congratulations and thank you for that. As a reminder to board members, you should have gotten an email here recently about your ethics financial disclosure. Please make sure that you take care of that. We don't want there to be bad things happen to any of us as a result of that. And also we have the NCSBN mid-year meeting coming up next week. Karen Boyer will be attending in person. As an FYI, they do live stream the public portion of the meeting. It starts at like 2:30 in the morning or something Hawaii time. So you can watch if you want to do that. It's not a participating thing so much as just a watching thing. But if you are interested in what happens at a mid-year meeting, you're welcome to do so. And that's all I've got. The chair's announcement. Okay, we're going to move then to the approval of minutes from we have December 7th, the open and executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as circulated?
Karen moves to approve as written.
Is there a second?
Second from Bradley Kuo.
Does any board member wish to vote no, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it, the motion carries. We also have minutes to approve from the open session for February 1st, 2024. I did provide non-substantive edits to the executive officers to correct a couple of typos. So is there a motion to accept the amended minutes?
I have just one point of non-substantive amendments. Just my PMHMP was removed from my title. So I just want to make sure that that's there.
Okay.
So that people are aware that there's a PMHMP on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, so moved.
And is there a second?
Karen seconds.
Thank you. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it, the motion carries. All right. We will move on then to the next agenda item, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Does anybody like to provide testimony on the matter of the minutes from our previous meetings?
Nope, there are no hands raised.
Thank you. Secretary Mark. That's okay. We're paying attention. As a note, if there's an agenda item, I name them all. If you'd like to provide testimony, you can go ahead and raise your hand, but we will ask. Okay, so we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the executive officer's report. So take it away, EOs.
All right, I'll go first regarding the proposed amendments to chapter 89 relating to nurses. Proposed amendments pertaining to temporary permits. We did get the approval from the governor. So prior to your April 4th meeting, it will be a in-person only public hearing, which all of you are required to attend. I need quorum for that one.
Okay.
So it will be at 9 o'clock. Normally when your BON meeting is scheduled, so your meeting will follow that public hearing, okay? Depending on how many people attend and want to testify, it can last till 9:30, 10 o'clock, it depends. Okay, we won't know until we start getting testimony in. So a reminder that we're gonna do it in person. It's not gonna be held virtually. So the board meeting will also be held in person as virtually. Okay, any questions? Okay. Random audit. Okay, so Chelsea said that there were a little over 600 audit letters that went out. We changed it from 5% to 2%. So I counted all the submissions that we manually receive or physically receive. I didn't go through the emails yet. There are some that were emailed, I saw. But there were about 390 submissions in total. That's like half-ish, almost a bit over. But they're also, some of them probably sent it by email. So we'll be going through that. We haven't had a chance to start reviewing it yet. But Mark has actually done some. So we will get an updated report at your next meeting.
So have any deficiency notices been sent for non-response? Okay,
We have not actually reviewed them officially.
okay.
Okay. Is there anybody attending want to testify or add any comment to this agenda item?
There are no raised hands.
All right. Okay. Take it away, Alex.
Okay. So moving to the 2024 legislative session, the status of all these bills that I'm about to recount is based on my looking at the legislative website yesterday. So first, HB 2415 HD2. The position of this board was to appreciate the intent to expand access to care and offer comments. And so this bill just passed out of the House and it's been transmitted to the Senate. For SB 2492 SD2, another compact bill with the same position, this bill passed out of the Senate, transmitted to the House. Moving on to HB 2079 HD2. This is a gender affirming care bill, and our position was to support the sections relating purely to our statute, which basically had to do with, discipline regarding nurses who provide gender affirming care. And this bill also passed to the Senate. Moving to HB 2775 HD1, and all the bills that I'm about to discuss we're just tracking these. This bill was about establishing a candor process for healthcare providers and families, and this bill passed to the Senate. SB 2634 relating to healthcare education. This bill passed HRE and was referred to Ways and Means. And lastly, SB 1580 SD1 relating to labor standards. This bill was referred to CPN and WHAM on February 16th, but hasn't been scheduled as of then. Any discussion from the board on any of these bills?
I have just a question about, there's the matching bills, not the companions, but there's the Senate bill and the House bill related to the compact, and they were both crossed over. At what point will they, one get subsumed into the other, or do they both keep traveling?
Well, it could be, so obviously when the House goes to the Senate, they will look at it. They passed out a bill.
Right.
They may try to amend it to mirror what they approved.
Right.
Previously.
Okay.
At the end, if both sides, the House and the Senate do that to the other
chambers
bill,
yeah,
then it can go to conference.
Mhm.
Meaning the last week or two of April.
and then they decide, presumably the
Every
version
day.
should be identical by that point, and they would only accept one to keep going. I'm just
May not be
confused by the
identical,
process.
they might just choose one to go to conference.
Check.
And then you have to, both sides would have to agree to it.
And the agreement has to happen before the end of that session. If there's no agreement, the bill is likely not to move forward.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Thank you for that.
Is anyone in the public that would like to testify on this agenda item?
There are no raised hands.
All right.
Yeah. And we have our next agenda item related to continuing competency. Oh. One of you leading that one, or?
Karen,
Okay, so previously, we had a question about whether or not we were willing to include BLS, where there was a whole bunch of courses that were considered together. So basic life support, CPR, advanced cardiac life support, et cetera, for continuing competency. So Karen did some research. I'm gonna let you lead the discussion on that.
So I was charged in November with looking at other states, and what I looked at a total of 15 states, including Hawaii, and we had the strictest in that we did not allow ACLS, PALS, or NALS as continuing education. As a point, California does allow those to serve as CE, and Pennsylvania allows, but only once in a cycle. So they are the next strict after us of the 15 total states that I reviewed. They said they did allow, but again, if you did one in June and one in May, you could technically have 2 bouts of these in one renewal cycle, and they did not allow for that. There was another state, Illinois, that allowed up to 5 CE for these more technical type skills. But Hawaii was the only one that didn't. In my research, I think Leanne found a little bit different. It might be that the question, she framed it as BLS in conjunction with ACLS, PALS and NALS. And there are some states, California does not allow BLS. We do not. And Texas and Pennsylvania do not allow BLS. So it could be the way that question was asked. So
I'm gonna make a request that the acronyms may be unhelpful to members of the public not familiar.
oh, okay.
About.
Advanced cardiac life support for adults, pediatric advanced life support for children, and neonatal advanced life support NALS. So in my mind,
And
that's
BLS is.
BLS
basic.
is basic life support, which is really airway pumping and choking. I mean, it's AED use also.
What is AAH?
AED?
AAH, American Heart.
Oh,
Association.
American Heart Association.
What-
Well,
CPR.
healthcare providers have to have American Heart Associated BLS or CPR.
Okay.
The community, there's other levels. Do you want me to describe differences briefly, or the American Heart Association requires 1 person, 2 person, resuscitation, also does airway for infant, child, and adult, and AED placement. So the American Heart Association for BLS is more than the community.
So my question that I surveyed or requested NCSBN, National Council of State Boards of Nursing,
Thank you, Leanne.
to ask the other member boards. Basically, I took it, the requirement, what was required in your continuing competency booklet. So I asked for renewal of LPN and RN licenses that require continuing education. Can courses such as BLS, ACLS, PALS, NALS, or instructor certification in the aforementioned learning activities be applied toward continuing education credits? Only 29 states responded, 4 skipped the question, which is only one question. Yes, 12 jurisdictions answered yes. And then 16 answered no,
12 out of 29.
answered yes,
Okay,
16 answered no. So, but like Karen said, no to which part of it?
Right.
We don't know.
okay. Thank you for trying to facilitate our discussion on that. Much appreciated. Okay, so Karen, do you have a?
Yeah,
recommendation?
I would like to recommend that to the continuing competency booklet that we amend. I think it's 0.8 and 10 courses such as BLS or I'd like to amend that.
Well,
Yes.
so,
That's
Yeah.
FAQs. Oh, it's not a point.
so,
The continuing education requirement section. And then we would have to insert that and put out a bulletin, amend the bulletin.
okay, so I guess my question is, hold on. How am I gonna phrase this in my mind? We have 47, it's nine learning activity options. So is the proposal that we're entertaining to allow these to count as standalone activity options, or that we could use the CEs to count toward the 30 CE minimum? That I want to clarify what it is we're entertaining the potential for doing,
That is what I'd like to recommend.
to add them to count them
Yeah.
for the CEs. Okay. So it wouldn't be an amendment necessarily to what counts. We're just gonna let you use the CEs you get from these courses to count for the 30.
So we clarify that. Because question FAQs says no.
Correct.
So we're gonna clarify that. So which ones particularly?
Yes.
BLS,
ACLS,
BLS two?
Not
not
BLS.
BLS,
Okay, so no BLS, ACLS, PAL.
PALS and NOWS.
Okay.
I hadn't really contemplated instructor certification. I mean, I didn't research that. Instructor, your CEs that you get to be an instructor for one of these.
So if you teach the course,
You have to,
You wouldn't be able to show CEs for that though,
okay, so that would be a no then.
still.
That if you teach, if these courses are acceptable if you take them, but if you teach them, you're not gonna get credit for it. You're not gonna get CE credit for it.
You would be able to show that you acquired CE credit for that.
What if they can? What if they show some kind of certificate?
You can't get CE for courses you teach.
Okay,
But can you get a CE for doing the training to teach the course?
Probably.
Right.
So CE is for a training course. That's different. Going through instructor training is different than being an instructor.
Hmm.
So we could be that specific.
okay, so. Training to teach, okay.
so I would like for us to allow ACLS, PALS and NOWS as CE when you renew your license.
Discussion. There was a decisive head nod from Sherry Shields Hansen just now.
What about Jill?
Is this Sherry? Yes, Sherry Shields Hansen. I agree. I agree with this and appreciate the work that's gone into this. I agree that BLS should not be allowed. But these other training courses are required for your practice, so they should be CEUs counted towards the 30 units required.
This is Bradley, but with that same logic, BLS is required.
In my mind, advanced ACLS, PALS and NOWS involves medications, advanced airway systems,
Oh, yes.
adjustment for size, reactions, responsiveness. So there's high level skills and thinking and pharmacology involved in those, airway, rhythm interpretation, and a lot of research that goes into those. So that's the other reason that I'm supporting those or wanting to see those as allowed.
But not BLS, basic support.
Yeah. There's no medications with
So
ALS.
I'm sorry, can you clarify then also? So if someone, because these courses I see, they're more than 1 or 2 hours.
Yes,
So if someone takes all of these courses for 30 hours,
I don't think it's 30 hours.
no, wait.
Yeah.
30 hours is the CE requirement learning activity. If someone just takes all of these courses multiple times during the biennium, which is a 2-year period, is that acceptable? Because you didn't make any restrictions. You're saying, I'll accept these courses. So how many times can you take it from a different provider and get 6-hour credit?
They're costly. If you're employed, for example, like in OB, you have to have 2 of those. You have to, and they'll pay for it, but they'll only pay for it every 2 years. So an independent person, we'll use Bradley or something, who has to pay on his own. I mean.
So sorry, you have to renew it every 2 years. Your
Yes.
certification is good for 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's no reason a person would take it more than once in a biennium anyway. But would we allow them to stack them? Right, so like, can you do ACLS and PALS and NALS and they all count? Are the courses materially different enough from each other?
My guess, if you do all 3 of those, the maximum is gonna be like 18 CEs. So you still, if you do all of those, I mean, my guess is most do at max 2.
Right.
And so that still allows 16 or 18 CEs. And I think that's my point.
Right.
If we only required 10 every 2 years, I might be more hesitant, but
Right.
30,
Yeah.
it takes a chunk to get 30. I really have to work at it, to be honest. But anyway, I don't know if we want to be that specific that it can only be used once in every renewal cycle, like Pennsylvania did.
All right, thanks for clarifying.
We do.
Jill, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with not including BLS because that is a requirement of every healthcare worker, almost every, and even some of the non-licensed. So my question though is there's quite a few other certifications that could be required. Like in the ED, you have TNCC, and then you also have NRP, unless NOW's replaced that. Karen, I can't recall. So I'm wondering do we call it out individually and specify, or do we just, are we more general so that when questions come up, we can interpret it ourselves? I don't know. What
Hey,
are your
Jill.
thoughts on that?
Hey, Jill, this is Leanne. Can
Hey.
you spell out what the acronyms are that you just used?
So there's trauma certification, TNCC, and then there's NRP, which is neonatal resuscitation. So it's similar to NALS, but I don't think it's exactly the same. But there are other certifications that, like if you're a trauma center, you have to have that. I just wonder if calling it out, like saying ACLS PALS, we're going to get more questions on other certifications. There's stroke certifications. There's just a lot of others.
When I reviewed 14 other Board of Nursing websites, many were specific about ACLS, PALS, and NOWS. I did not read the other things that you're saying, and I called many of them just to be sure that I was understanding, or if it wasn't specific, I asked that question. So in my research, I didn't find, but I also wasn't looking, I wasn't looking for other certifications.
I think in general, so when we look at the continuing competency guidebook and it's asking for, if you take the option to submit 30 contact hours of continuing nursing education, it has to be from an accredited provider. And there's a long list of accredited providers. So if the accredited providers are offering the certifications, Jill, that you're talking about, that's sort of the continuing competency guidance already addresses that. So I think the issue that we've been dealing with is specific inquiries about the advanced life support courses, because they're not offered as CEs like in the same way that other types of nursing education is, that they wouldn't fall necessarily under the accredited provider section in our guidebook. So we specifically get inquiries about this. So I think we're not necessarily trying to solve the problem of, do we have to make a comment about every single possible certification? Because I think the guidebook provides some robust information about that already. These have been specifically excluded previously. So I think we're trying to reevaluate whether or not we want to maintain that position on these courses specifically. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. And I think, I don't have any objections to including those. People do take them when they're not required, just because they want to advance their education and be ready for that emergency. So and they are expensive. I'll agree with Karen, like they're not cheap and they take up a lot of time. I would say they take up more time than the CEUs that you get for them.
That's good to know. Okay, so it sounds like, Bradley, do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate. Because I feel that this is part of job requirements. And I'm concerned that by allowing these, we potentially dilute the opportunity or the requirement for nurses in this state to expand their knowledge on special populations, elderly, neonates, homeless. And so by allowing this, if it's really that many CEs that somebody could get in a 2-year period of time, I'm concerned that the expanded knowledge and training related to other things, cultural competency and whatnot, could be at risk.
So, not that I'm trying to change your mind, but I'm going to read to you the definition of continuing competency from our statute, 457.2. defines continuing competency as the long-term educational and professional process by which an individual undertakes and documents with verifiable evidence a personal learning plan, which is weird, a plan, but anyway, a learning plan that encompasses periodic self-assessment of personal strengths and weaknesses as present in the individual's practice as a nurse, and a commitment to furthering the individual's professional knowledge related to the nursing field. So if a person identifies themselves as being lacking in basic life support skills, regardless of whether it's required for their job or not, would you not agree that would fall under the definition of continuing competence?
Yes, however, what I would question then is recertification. Because they already were able to attain that knowledge through their original certification for PALS or for ACLS. But recertification is now looking at whether you've been able to retain that knowledge and maybe provide any additional and new knowledge to update your work or the processes. So perhaps the initial certification, but recertification is much, much shorter. And it's simply just a confirmation of the knowledge. So are they learning anything new necessarily?
I would make that same argument for APRN certifications though.
Hmm?
So your APRN certification only exempts you once from the continuing competency requirement?
Yeah, I would like to chime in here. I think one thing I'm feeling is right now we're getting very prescriptive.
Right.
And I don't think that's the intent of continuing education, the individual plan or whatever you want to call it. I think if they are a CE provider, they're approved as a provider and they're providing education, it's not the board's purview to say, oh, I can accept your CEs, but not yours. And I think we're just becoming too prescriptive, even by having it in the statute or in the FAQs in the beginning, in the first place. Again, we want them to have a full 30 CEUs and be holistic and all that. But then if that's our intent, then we should issue required Cs that they have to do. Like some states require, abuse. You have to do a CEU and abuse or things like that. I just think we're becoming too prescriptive, and I'm not okay with that. I'd like to approve that we allow these CEs if their CEs are given to the nurse. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
I appreciate that. This is Bradley. I appreciate that. But there is also a majority of states that were surveyed by our EO that indicated that they don't allow it.
Well,
16.
1, 2, 3, 4,
I think that list is different.
5, 6, 7. They are different, yes.
Yeah.
And
But
so again, she grouped
the denominators are.
BLS and I separated them out.
Sure.
And in my
BLS less likely to
Yeah.
be approved, ALS more
Sure.
likely to be
Yeah.
approved.
in my Hawaii, California, or not Oregon, Pennsylvania and Texas did not allow BLS, but they all allowed ACLS and PALS. I think in my mind, do we want to be stricter than California? And then there were some notes, they might be from you, Chelsea, that I think the dental board allows ACLS, PALS and NALS. I mean, do we want to be stricter than the dental board? I mean, I don't know. I appreciate your intent for cultural competency, special populations. I just want to support nurses in their practice. And I think these are valuable research-based, advanced pharmacology, airway management, rhythm interpretation, and should be allowed as CE for license renewal.
Is there any member of the public who'd like to provide testimony?
Diane.
Oh, Jill.
Jill might have her hand up.
Oh, hi, it's Jill. I just also want to add that in Hawaii, it is really hard to go to in-person CEU conferences because of the travel involved. And as ACLS and PALS and stuff, it is like a hands-on experience. It's a hands-on training. And often we have to just do these online courses that, to be honest, don't always enhance. I mean, I know nurses all the time that they just do these online courses and they just fly through them and they don't really enhance their education. So I think that's just my 2 cents for that. And I think we should support it.
Is there a motion?
I would like to move that, and yeah, I don't have the continuing competency book in front of me, that we recognize ACLS, PALS, and NOWS as continuing competency CEs in the every 2-year renewal recycle for LPNs and RNs. I think for APRNs, you folks have to maintain your certification anyway, and which is separate, I think.
That's national.
Ask for a second.
Is there a second?
This is Jill, I'll second.
Okay, does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on this motion?
Bradley, nay.
Bradley's a nay.
No.
Okay, that's one nay. There is no quorum on the ayes, so the motion does not carry.
Okay.
So we'll defer.
Well, I'm not sure. What this board needs to do is review the
Mhm.
continuing competency booklets.
Yeah,
So I think that this will be readdressed later. But for now, I'm not gonna keep putting it back on just because we have new board members. We're just gonna have to work on the continuing competency booklet and update that. And this will be an area that you guys will be probably looking at again.
okay. Thank you.
But so keep this in the back of your head or your mind, whatever.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. All right, the last thing we have is a scope of practice inquiry. Is this you, Chelsea? Okay.
The board received the following email from a member of the public. I am a nurse and work at a drug addiction treatment center employee. I have been seeing some things that are not what was taught to me in nursing. First, under Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 457, Nursing, a section in the status documents that are registered, I believe she meant, you shall use reasonable judgment in carrying out prescribed medical orders of a licensed dentist, physician, osteopathic physician, or podiatrist licensed in accordance with Chapter 448, 453, 460, or 463E. Orders of an advanced practice registered nurse recognized in accordance with this chapter, or the orders of a physician assistant licensed pursuant to Chapter 453, practicing with physician supervision as required by Chapter 453 and acting as the agent of the supervising physician. Now, my job asked me to enter a medical diagnosis based on what a licensed family therapist, master's degree, diagnosed the patient without the MD even seeing the client. I refused. The family therapist stated he is allowed to diagnose patients under DSM. I stated that although he is allowed to diagnose, I must still wait until confirmation with the MD due to it being outside of my scope of practice of following orders from individuals not listed under Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 457, Nursing. The boss got really offended and we were going back and forth. He stated that all rules apply. Did I do the correct thing? Any advice or help would be appreciated. Secondly, there are non-nurses, individuals administering medication. I had a discussion with the boss and MD, and they both said that it is a self-administered facility, meaning the patients administer the medications themselves after the medication is handed to the patients. I told them that in Hawaii, only nurses, MDs, or other licensed or certified individuals are allowed to administer medication. I told them that the boss and MD had a justification for what I said, stating it was a self-administered facility. Do you have any advice on this issue? Any advice or help would be appreciated.
Mrs. Bradley, can I chime in?
Sure.
I thought about this,
I'm
addiction.
sorry. Can you hold on?
Yes.
You're not finished.
Oh.
I would like to advise the board that
Oh,
we can refer.
Remind.
Or remind. We can refer to the laws and rules and we address the inquiry, and that any response that we provide is going to be an informal interpretation. We'll give you this, the rule citation for that. Board.
Okay, thank you. Bradley.
so this is two separate issues.
Yep.
Within this statement. In the first issue related to receiving an order from somebody outside of Chapter 457, I believe this nurse is correct. The MD does need to confirm the diagnosis or the APRN because in 457, we don't, nurses don't take orders from therapists.
Okay,
So that would be my suggestion or my,
To cite that section that she cited
correct,
as the reason why she would need an MD to.
correct, right. I think that's appropriate.
I don't agree with you.
I love it.
I think this is a scope of practice question for the MFT board. Because a person who cannot,
Acronyms.
marriage and family therapy board, a licensed marriage and family therapist is not authorized to practice medicine. It is impossible to me that they could give a medical order. So the question of whether or not a nurse can follow a medical order given by somebody not practicing medicine is questionable to me. So if you're just being asked to document something in a chart by somebody who's not practicing medicine, is that a medical order? I don't know. This seems like a very weird gray area to me. I feel like the more prudent course of action would be to have this inquirer go to the Marriage and Family Therapy Board and ask whether it's within the MFT scope of practice to be telling an RN to chart.
I disagree with you. I disagree that it would need to go to that other board.
Why? Okay.
Because, for example, if both this entire organization was under the same electronic medical record,
Yes.
then the LMFT, the marriage and family therapist, would be able to enter that diagnosis themselves.
Correct.
Right.
And when that's
So-
part of the other inquiry is like, is this appropriate?
Right.
Because the one thing I'm imagining, right, is that in the case of therapy, the therapist is the method of treatment, right? The therapist is the treatment. There's no prescribing,
Sure.
right? So I cannot fathom how you would just be able to be like, oh, I'm gonna chart, this person has substance use disorder without there being notes or whatever that would justify that diagnosis. So I don't understand why that's being farmed out. So to me, it's a weird question about, is this the appropriate practice for the documentation of a diagnosis by the profession of licensed marriage and family therapy? I have no kuleana to decide whether or not that is appropriate practice for an MFT. But it seems questionable to me, because if all you're doing is documenting MFT said patient presents with symptoms consistent with SUD, all that nurse is responsible for is the documentation, not the diagnosis itself.
I agree with you, but it sounds like this particular inquiry is asking to have the diagnosis placed within the problem list.
I don't know what that means, Bradley. Say that to me differently.
Problem list includes a list of diagnoses that a patient has been assessed and diagnosed with.
Okay.
So it can be very similar to the list of diagnoses as well. But the problem list does need to be something that is formulated by somebody who's got the ability to diagnose and
Sure.
treat and all that kind of stuff. In this particular case, if the LMFT was part of this organization, it could freely update the problem list with their own diagnosis. I don't see an issue with that. But I agree with you, without any supporting documentation of an evaluation that includes this diagnosis, then I don't think that it is appropriate to include in the problem list or ask the nurse to include in the problem list until somebody who has the ability to do that evaluation can do the evaluation, even if it is receiving documentation notes from an outside source, such as an LMFT, to state that this is appropriate to include within the problem list.
Karen.
Is anybody familiar with the policies and procedures in outpatient substance abuse treatment centers? I am not, and that was going to be my question. I'm wondering if there are policies that allow the licensed family therapist to enact this. Sort of under the, I'll say medical doctor or something, because that's what's referred to here, to make a diagnosis with some, I mean, like, oh gosh, I can't, algorithm or something, standing orders. I wonder, and I just don't know that. But I'm wondering in this facility if those, and if there are standing orders, let's say, or policies and procedures for self-administration of medications as well. So that was my initial question. I very much appreciate the deeper questions that you asked of role and statute and
Oh, you're thinking that's Sherry and Jill.
Sherry, Jill, thoughts?
This is Jill. I'm not as familiar with the, behavioral health, that side of outpatient. Although I'm dabbling in it a little bit more. We do not have family therapists yet, but we're working on a program for that. So I don't know the answer to that, but I'm gonna agree with Bradley in that if this person can make the diagnosis, why are they just not making the diagnosis themselves? And the problem list, what it is it's an easy way. It's like a one-stop shop to look and see what's going on with the patient, right? That's why we call it the problem list. And so that's my thing is like, why are you asking the RN to do it if you can do it, yourself? Historically, RNs don't put diagnosis in the problem list. It's just whether it's out of scope or not, it's just not historically done because the MD is the one that makes the diagnosis. As far as the administering of medications, you do not have to be licensed to administer a medication. You can be trained, especially in a private practice. You can be trained as a medical assistant. Not all medical assistants are certified. And I'll be honest, not all medical assistants are medical assistants. They're healthcare workers that are trained to give medications, and that's allowed. You don't have to be certified for that. Self-administer, we do not, at my facility, we don't allow patients to self-administer in the facility. It's a liability issue. So I'm not sure how this particular clinic is ran, but normally when you self-administer, you pick it up at the pharmacy and you take it home and you administer it yourself in your home, not in the facility.
This is Bradley, and I agree with you. However, the thing that defines this even more is that the description states that the medication is handed to the patient, which means that the medication is held elsewhere. Therefore, it is not self-administered.
I don't think this is a nursing question.
Sherry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Karen. I was thinking that maybe there's policies, and Jill, there's policies in place. An agency can train people to do things if there's a policy in place. So I don't know that we have enough information to really, make a definitive diagnosis, if you will, because I'm an RN, I can't do that. But from this letter. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything more I can add.
So, okay, so on the matter of the medication administration, the inquiry specifically says she acknowledges LPNs, RNs, and APRNs can administer medication. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done with that part of the inquiry. It's not a scope of practice question for RNs. It's about policy procedure in a healthcare facility over which we do not have any statutory authority.
Mhm.
So I don't think that we should address that part of the question. I don't know what the right entity is. I don't know if it's DOH or whatever the organization that administers
That's true.
other facilities. Is this an appropriate practice? I would prefer for us to refer that inquiry to some other entity with the authority to actually comment on that. So how do you guys feel about that? There's nodding, there's tentative nodding by Sherry. There's a thumbs up from Jill and tentative nodding from Sherry and a thumbs up from Sherry and a question mark face from Karen Boyer.
Yeah, no, I mean that we refer her back to her policies and procedures and the organization that oversees or this particular facility for that item.
Might be the Department of Health.
I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whose job it is to know that. Does the EO have a recommendation for who we might refer this to?
I don't know if Department of Health regulates clinics per se. Hospitals, yes. Clinics, do they regulate your practice?
No.
See, he can call himself a clinic and
But this doesn't sound like a clinic. Although,
whatever it is.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't know the name of it.
Right.
I didn't ask. I'm only looking at her initial ask of, I can carry out the orders of these individuals.
Correct, right, so I'm trying to get us out from having to make a decision on the second half of the important, is what I'm attempting to do.
So we can let her know, you respond to this first part, and then the other two. Let's, you know, not fall under the board's purview, as we don't have jurisdiction over quote clinics. We don't even know what site you're referring to. You may want to contact the Department of Health, Office of Healthcare Assurance, to see if they have any regulations regarding
Whatever type of facility you're working.
healthcare practices in a quote clinic setting. And then what was the other one?
Okay, so then that gets us to the actual part of the,
MFT.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then she might also want to reach out to the, whatever, if it's a board or a program. It's a program.
so. What I don't, so what I'm hearing you guys say is that it is not normal practice for anybody but the person making the diagnosis to document the diagnosis. Is that what I'm hearing you guys say? Bradley, you're making
Bill,
weird eyes.
in my experience, yes.
Yeah, Jill says yes.
Can you say that one more time?
Is it normal practice for the person who made the diagnosis to chart the diagnosis?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason we.
Absolutely.
Yes, enthusiastic, absolutely. So why is the MFT farming out? That's an MFT program question.
Who is,
So we will recommend that she contact that program and get clarification on that practice
Yes.
of the MFT.
How do you guys feel about that?
Because we can't speak yes or no. We know she's a nurse. This is your Nurse Practice Act. This is what you
Right.
can and cannot do. As for anything else, we can recommend she contact these other organizations and programs, but I don't know what else to tell her.
And I think Bradley, to your point earlier, where she is correct that use reasonable judgment in carrying out the prescribed medical order. She used her reasonable judgment. She felt uncomfortable doing that. She was within the guidelines of the Nurse Practice Act in expressing her discomfort in doing that. So yes, and also.
Yep.
You need to go. We recommend strongly that you go talk to the MFT program about whether this is.
I mean, I agree with all of this discussion, especially about, okay, you got the right statute in the 57 with regards to what occurs in her facility. The board stays out of that arena. And I don't know if punting towards MFT, I'm just looking, is going to give any definitive answers, but it's to be resolved, I think, within their facility. She's got it right about the 457. Whether you contact MFT, DOH, whatever, it's really going to come down to their organization. You know, I don't know if she has to talk with their in-house counsel or whatever, but it's not our arena.
So by the way, that was Sherry Wong.
Sorry. Different Sherry.
So are you saying don't refer her to these other organizations?
I don't know how fruitful they will be, but okay.
I mean,
Give her direct.
I don't think, right?
Right, because I feel like it's unhelpful, right, for us to just say, you're correct in asserting your judgment. And that doesn't really solve the problem, right? So.
Your reading of 457 is accurate. We agree with it.
Yes.
I mean, if this was legal, it's all hearsay. Why would I say Bradley told me XYZ and I chart?
Right.
I wouldn't say that. I
Right.
wouldn't, I would, she's saying, well, my boss says, attribute it to Brad.
Okay, so
MFT says,
okay, so
this.
let's say she goes to the MFT program and she sends that email to them and they say, yeah, the marriage family therapist has to chart their own or whatever they have to do. They find something not consistent with their practice act. So then now you can file a complaint,
Hmm.
but we don't know what their practice acts.
Right.
But we don't wanna, right, so we're not, but we wanna kind of like push her in that direction.
Right, because what I don't want to have happen as a result of this is that she concludes incorrectly that the board said, oh, the MFT behaved inappropriately. Right, it's like, we are not saying that.
None of that.
Your interpretation of the Nurse Practice Act 457-2 was appropriate.
Yep.
The board agrees and concurs.
That if you want to know if the scope of practice is consistent, I mean, what the MFT did is within their scope of practice is consistent, blah, 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 then contact, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
How's that?
Hmm.
Not DOH then?
But this is Bradley, the person didn't ask whether that's within their scope of practice necessarily. They asked whether it was within 457. And so we're simply just confirming that 457, she is correct of her interpretation of 457.
Yes.
457.
And also,
But
every inquiry has subtext, right? So it's the things that we say, and then the thing that she wants us to say, which is the MFT is or is not allowed to ask her to document a diagnosis.
We can, I think we can just say we're not saying yea or nay on their practice.
Right.
other than your assessment of the nurse specific part of it, your interpretation of like questioning this is correct.
Yes,
Is that okay?
yeah, any dissent on that?
But if you wanna know if we acted appropriately, then
And contact the board that, or the program that administers that scope of practice.
Yeah, I can separate the answer that way.
Cool. Is there any dissent on that opinion? Is there anybody who would like to provide testimony on this agenda item?
There are no raised hands.
Mark gives exactly 2.2 seconds. Y'all better raise your hand fast out there in the public, just so you know.
get ready. That button right there.
Okay, so do you guys need a motion or is our consensus fine?
I'm okay with that. It's consensus, if, or
Yes.
consent, okay?
I'm sorry. Shh.
What happened? Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. I was not supposed to.
Yeah, never mind. No.
Okay, all right, moving on to our next agenda item then. Thank you for that lively conversation as always. All right, we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is reports from Hawaii nursing organizations. So if we have representatives from the Hawaii State Center for Nursing, Hawaii American Nurses Association, and the Hawaii Association of Professional Nurses, we can bring them on over as panelists.
Is Leanne Husky on there or?
Well, it only says HSC.
Okay. Is Linda Beechner there?
I promoted those two.
And Jeremy?
I don't see Jeremy.
Is there a representative from Happen whose name we don't recognize? Yeah, all right, excellent. All right, let's start with the Hawaii State Center for Nursing. Hawaii State Center for Nursing.
Hi, friends. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Sorry, I don't know
now.
what's up with my camera.
Are you invisible?
I am. I'm unclear. I'm unsure what's happening. But anyway, I can verbally testify. Hi, friends. My name is Leanne Hussey. I'm here on behalf of Director Laura Reichart, who is out of the office currently. A few announcements. So the center launched the Hawaii Nurse Transition to Practice program. It expands our residency program by adding transition to specialty practice training. In 2003, we engaged 335 nurse residents. We also supported over 200 trainings in specialty areas, including the ED, ICU, peri-op, perinatal, and neonatal care. We also provided trainings for preceptors. Over 500 nurses received additional professional development support from HSCN, and all of these initiatives were made possible by support from the Department of Health Alcohol Drug Abuse Division opioid grant, and UH Community College's Good Jobs program, and in partnership with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii. The center is also happy to announce we're hosting our inaugural Nursing Scientific Symposium. The symposium is an opportunity for nurses from clinical and academic settings to share their original research, EVP, and QI projects, as well as programmatic innovations. We also welcome DNP students and PhD students, as well as NRP participants. Registration for this event will open in May. Our initial one will be free. It'll be held in Waikiki, and we are currently accepting abstract submissions. The link will be in the board's minutes. We also submitted a funding proposal to Department of Health, Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division for that focuses on evidence-based practices for improved opioid care. So this funding will help us innovate the delivery model for our current EBP workshop and internship. There's also a leadership EBP component, and we hope to launch this in fall 2024, and our proposal is currently being reviewed. Clinical placements continue to be a challenge for schools of nursing in Hawaii. We're working with additional facilities and with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii to expand access to clinical placements across the state. And the center plans to conduct a clinical placement needs assessment in the spring of 2024. Director Reichert would like to echo your board's chair in congratulating Kapiolani CC for being named the first PN program in the nation by Mountain Measurements, and recognize all the LPN programs in the state that had incredible NCLEX pass rates this year. That's all from the center.
Thank you, Leanne. Does anybody have any?
Actually, email it to me.
Yeah, Leanne, can you do the EOs a favor and email? Oh, she did.
I did it like 15 minutes before the meeting.
Right on. Thank you. Any questions for Leanne? Thanks, Leanne Hussey. We appreciate you being here.
Hi, friends.
Okay, now we're going to have an update from the Hawaii American Nurses Association. Linda Beechnor, welcome.
Hi, good morning. It's always good to be with this group. I learn so much from your brilliant minds as you grapple with all these issues. I learn a lot. I wanted to update you on where we're at with Hawaii ANA. We, as far as the legislature is concerned, we are not in support of the NLC bills, which I'm sure is not news. And we are very much in support of SB 1580 SD1 as it's moving forward with the suggestion to do a work group. And we very much want to be involved with that work group, and hopefully it will find its way through the next committees and move forward. Upcoming events, Nurses Month has been demoted again to Nurses Week officially by American Nurses Association. So on May the 15th, we are planning an event for Hawaii's nurses where we're having a speaker from CMS who we've been featuring in our continuing education presentations to do a noontime free CE for celebrating Nurses Week. And the other event I wanted to make sure you knew about is that between June 25 and 27, Sigma Theta Tau Region 1 conference is taking place in Honolulu at Hilton Hawaiian Village, actually. This is going to be attended by their Western region people, which includes Canada, Canadian and American Western states. And this is for those who don't know what STT is Sigma Theta Tau is the honor society the International Honor Society for nurses. So you have to be invited to belong. And we are supporting that 3-day conference by doing all their CEs for them and making sure that that is available to all nurses in Hawaii. And the last event that we are planning is October 17th. Our annual membership meeting again will be held at Honolulu Country Club and in Honolulu. And I think that's all that I needed to report today. Thank you for having me.
For Linda.
Yes.
Thanks, Linda. We appreciate your update. I see Jeremy Creekmore. Thanks, Linda. We appreciate you. I hope you have a great day. Jeremy,
you too.
From Hawaii Association of Professional Nurses. How you doing?
I am outstanding. I hope the same is true for everybody in the room over there. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks again for letting me check in. Always wonderful seeing everybody. I'll keep this brief. Don't worry. HAPN continues to follow several bills that are crossing over and or on the verge of not making it very far. We continue to oppose the nurse compact agreement for reasons stated with concerns. We've all been there and discussed that, so I won't get into depth with that. But we continue to oppose it, and we'll continue to oppose it as it crosses over and attempts to move forward. We also are following the GE tax thing that's made its way, fortunately, on and moving forward. So we'll stay engaged with that as well. Other than that, we're just working on the usual. We're trying to do conferences, trying to keep up with our Pauhana sessions and stuff like that. Always fun it happened and in fun engaging with everybody. So I'll cut it short and thank you again for allowing me to come and speak. And I'll see you guys next month.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions for Jeremy?
No, but I have a question.
Thank you. Yes, Io Tashima, what's your question?
So is that GE tax, is that the GE tax for
Health care, isn't it? All health
medical
care.
services or healthcare services?
Current.
Would it apply to APRNs as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay, let's just put that on the list because we weren't tracking that.
Thanks.
And so the concern that we had, and others too, I mean, this is a good step in the right direction, but it only includes primary care. So happenstance on it as it moves forward is going to be our support of a possible amendment to include specialty care as well. So, either way it goes, we think that this is an incredible leap in the right direction. We've tried to do that in the past and it's always failed. So we're going to support it wholeheartedly because at least if we get the foot in the door, maybe we could make some change later if not. So thanks again, everybody.
Hey, thanks for clarifying that.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Very interesting.
All right, on times. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is applications for nurse licensure. Does anybody here wish to provide testimony on any of the applications that are on the agenda today? Who do we have with a hand up?
Bonnie Fleming
Bonnie Fleming.
and Martha Goings.
Okay, so what will happen is that the board is going to go into executive session to discuss the confidential details of your applications. If the board has questions for you, we will definitely pull you in. Just so you know, though, if the board is inclined to approve your application and we don't see the need to talk to you, we may not pull you into the executive session. So just be aware of that. But if we have questions for you, we'll definitely call you in. So be patient with us. We're going to go into executive session. The discussions can take a long time, but we will call you if we need to talk to you. So make sure that your phones have your notifications are on and whatnot so we can reach you. Okay. All right. So is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved by Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley. Is there a second?
Karen seconds.
Thank you, Karen. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. We are in executive session.
Mhm.
How much am I hanging?
No, it's good to double check.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. The draft on the midnight.
Oh, yeah. Does it look okay?
Yeah, I just had a couple.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, at this time, I would like to move to approve the ratification lists for LPNs, RNs, and APRNs as appended to the agenda for this meeting. Is there a second?
Karen, seconds.
Thank you, Karen. Is any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. All right, at this time, we're going to defer a decision on the application for Zabora Perryman. Okay, is there a motion for the related to the licensed practical nurse application for Martha Goings? Jill, we can't hear you. Oh,
Sorry. Sorry, this is Jill. I have two things going on here. I am actually gonna make a motion to deny Martha Going's application based on statute 457-12A8.
There's a second.
Karen, seconds.
Thank you, Karen, for the second. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay, is there a motion related to the LPN application for Sheila Mendez?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve Sheila Mendez LPN application.
There's a second.
Second.
Bradley seconds. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay, is there a motion related to the following applications for registered nursing licensure? Bonnie Flaming, Anita Richards, Heather Hip, Lydia Alvarado, Melissa Tracy Pounds, Daniela Richardson, Valeria Fuentes, and Susan Miller.
Yes, this is Jill. I'll make a motion to approve the mentioned applications for RN license.
Second.
Bradley
Bradley
seconds. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. And is there a motion related to the application for advanced practice registered nursing for Heather Hip?
Yes, this is Jill. I'll make a motion to approve the APRN application for Heather Hip.
Is there a second?
Bradley seconds.
Thank you, Bradley, for the second. Does any board member wish to vote nay, recuse themselves, or abstain from voting on that motion? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. The motion carries. And that concludes the agenda item related to applications. Next agenda item is pertaining to our next meeting. So this is a modification. The agenda says it starts at 9, but it will actually, the start time for the meeting will begin following the hearing for the administrative rules modification. So, but it is in person. We need a quorum, so you guys need to show up. All right, and then that concludes. If you guys know that you're not gonna be able to attend, please let the executive officers know as soon as possible. And with that, we are adjourned. Mahalo nui, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.